things about being invited by Eric is he said, look, I'd like you to speak at the conference. I said, oh, really exciting. I said, well, Steve, it's a mobile conference. I said, oh, great. I'll speak shorter. And he said, well, I'd like you to be practical. And I said, you're leading up to something. And he said, well, I'd really like you to actually use examples. And as he said, we're going to get some great panelists here who are actually going to do all the work. But what I'm going to do is set the scene. Because I think the real question is, can mobile startups go lean? We have this great theory, but how does it actually apply to practice? Particularly because your sandbox, in the end for deployment, is fairly constrained. And so what I want to do is just remind you what the theory looks like. And then we'll have the panelists go talk about practice, and I'll ask them a question or two in the middle of their presentations. So there's three parts of a lean startup. And for those of you, anybody ever go to business school or read the Harvard Business Review? It turns out on the cover this month, the lean startup is now jumped the shark and is now mainstream. So the lead article this month was the lean startup. But there are three parts of a lean startup. At least for me, and the way I teach it is, one is you kind of want to understand what your business model is. Not just your product, not just your customer, but all the parts of it, and I'm going to talk about that. The second part is customer development. Kind of how do I get outside the building and test some of my hypotheses that I've kind of articulated in the business model. And the third, which I'm sure every one of you do, is how do I build my product incrementally and iteratively? But when you hear the word lean startup, there's just three parts. And there's, much like any religion, there's kind of different variants depending on who you talk to, but they all kind of follow these three steps. And which one's best? Kind of like asking which is the best programming languages. But here it kind of follows these three pieces. And so let me just remind you, the business model is kind of a diagram, just as a reminder, that says, while you think you're building a product or acquiring customers or generating revenue, what you're really doing is, at the end of the day, searching for a scalable and repeatable business model. And you do that by finding at first the match between your value proposition and your customer segment. Value proposition is a fancy word for who are my customers and what am I delivering to them. That is, what am I building? What pain am I solving? What gain am I creating? And who am I solving it for in my customer segments? What do they look like? What's their archetypes? What platform are they on? Do they pay? Do they not? Etc. And then eventually you figure out all the other components. How do I acquire them? How do I activate them? How do I grow them? How do I keep them? And then how do I generate revenue ultimately from those users I have? And do I need partners, key activities? What are the costs of doing so? The other piece is customer development. That is, how do I do customer discovery, customer validation? Back to what Vinod Khosla said on day one. We've been describing the startup as a search for a business model. The mistake we made in the first 50 years of Silicon Valley was confusing execution with search. If you remember Vinod's comment about no business plan, my phrase is no business plan survives first contact with customers. And for those of you, anybody ever write a business plan? I now teach in multiple universities, and what I explain is, why, yes, we ought to teach business plan writing in universities, but now we ought to move it to the English department because it's the best example of creative writing I'll ever teach anybody to do. Particularly Appendix A. Anybody ever do Appendix A, the $100 million spreadsheet in the back? Whatever the question was, the answer always was $100 million in year 5. No one ever noticed in 50 years in Silicon Valley. No one ever said this. The only people ever to require a 5-year plan on a series of complete unknowns, besides venture capitalists, was the Soviet Union. Okay? And we know how well those 5-year plans turned out. So what customer discovery says, startups actually go from failure to failure. It's a big idea. We now embrace the fact that you really, all you have on day one are a series of untested hypotheses. In all the words of now found its way into the common lexicon, minimum viable product, iterations, pivots, etc., are based on this key idea that says we're just starting off with hypotheses. And I use the word hypotheses because at Stanford, my students are paying $50,000 a year, but outside of Stanford, we just call them effing guesses. And that's all you're doing on day one is you're kind of guessing. And now we have figured out that if you're going to do that, why don't we put some rigor around that process? And that rigor is the customer discovery process. How do we test first the customer problem, then the solution? How do we test the product, features, and then test the customer segments? And of course the way we do this is by building our product with some agile methodology that's iterative and incremental. And so what I thought I'd do is actually bring out some of the speakers and talk about some concrete examples. So let me go back is, how do I get out of the building, when I know I'm going to be in a bound box of an app store? How do I do that in an app store? And if I could, what should I test? How should I test it? And where should I test it? And our three panelists today hopefully will give us some concrete examples. So Matt, are you ready? I'm ready. Here's Matt.
How you guys doing? I love this guy. We're really lucky to have him here. So I'm the CEO of Sincerely. Sincerely is building a gifting network. And I'm going to tell you guys about basically the first year of our life and the learning process that we went through. So we also have to pay attention. These are converted to PowerPoint. It started as keynotes, so hopefully the animations work. Here's what our product set looked like our first year. Some of you guys may know these products: Postogram, Pop Booth, Ink Cards. But what you didn't see were a Facebook app, an off-branded app called Santa Postcards, 99-cent prints, Storyboarder, and Cardinal. So we've launched over 12 apps in probably 18 months of the company. And we did that just to learn. Each one of these steps, we were trying to validate a different part of figuring out what our business was. So what did we test? This all started from this opportunity I saw, which was that this iPhone 4 came out, and this thing had a camera better than any phone's ever had, and people were finally going to be able to throw away their point-and-shoot cameras. And as an entrepreneur, I said, what are the business opportunities around this? So I did testing for product and the product solution, web testing to understand the market, mobile testing to determine the positioning and product features.
So Matt, let me stop you on bullet one.
Yeah.
Okay. So you just assumed there was an opportunity.
Technology changed. I said there's probably a business here.
So on day one, you started a faith-based business.
Yes.
It was a religious activity, right? And that's why most founders do. But instead of just coding, you did something different, right? You actually decided to test. It's a big idea.
It involves some coding, yeah.
Very good. But was this based on experience you had in other companies that said, gee, just sitting in the building, writing code, or is it something you instinctually knew? What, right here, even though you said, I think I know, you also made another decision, which is pretty wise, of I think I know, but I should test.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
The first company was called Zobni, and we took about 18 months to launch our first product in the market. It was a lot harder product to build. We probably could have learned more in the process. We did a small process, but it wasn't as intentional as our first company. We both dropped out of grad school to do it, so I paid more attention this time. It doesn't mean I'm going to be better at it, but...
So it was thoughtful.
It was thoughtful.
Thank you.
All right. So the first product that we did was
actually... feed you these, Matt.
Yes, perfect. The first product we did was a Facebook app. So we said, this is actually going to be easier to get out to people than a mobile app. And so that's the first lesson to think. Does rapid development, does lean startup work in mobile? Well, actually, you don't even need to start on mobile. Most things could actually be tested on the web first. So we did that. We tested two simple things functionally. Can we get billing to work? Can we get printing to work? And will people pay for physical postcards? This little thing we built on Facebook made about $50,000 in December before we really decided to start the company. Next, we took that idea to a mobile app. This is our first mobile app. It was off-branded, so I didn't put my name on it yet. No one knew we were doing this. One of the key things we had no idea about was App Store marketing. Like, does SEO matter in the App Store? We wanted to learn that. Ends up it really doesn't, by the way. And could we take credit cards on a mobile phone? Are people willing to put them in? Next, Do people want to buy photo prints for themselves, or do they want to send greeting cards to other people? So we launched an app called 99-cent Prints by Mail. Another off-branded app, you can only send products to yourself. It's the first time we actually let you use the photos from the phone, which is the whole thing that we were trying to get to eventually. We learned more app store marketing. We did some paid user acquisition here. How much does it cost to buy a customer that gives us 99 cents?
And what was the biggest thing you learned?
From this one, well, photos matter. I mean, we learned that, right? The first cards were all like stock images. This one let you actually send a picture of your kid to somebody else.
And people cared.
People bought a lot of them. Yeah. Still off-brand at this point. So at this point, we had learned a lot. People wanted to send real photos from their phone. They wanted to send other people. They were willing to put in credit cards. So we were finally ready to launch a product with our name on it, on our brand, to the world. And that was an app we launched called Postagram. It was the first branded product. And one thing I'll remember from when we were launching this, everybody's like, it works so well. Like, you just nailed the experience. I was like, you have like probably 50,000 customers have already told us that.
So by the time you got here, big idea, you had 50,000 customers in off-branded and semi-branded experiences, but it looked to the world like you had nailed it the first time.
Yeah.
You looked like a genius. Big one.
First time we did.
Looked like a genius.
First time we ever did PR, first time you could actually send products to other people. You could send to multiple recipients. That was actually the second iteration of this product. We started doing cross-promotion. So we had those customers on other products. We didn't want to support them. So we had a built-in customer base to tell about this product as well.
And did you kill the Facebook product?
Oh yeah, those are all gone.
And did you launch this product? Or
It took off really well.
was there a formal launch?
Yes.
Right here.
Yeah.
And how long was this from your start when you started doing all those other
6 months.
6 months.
Yeah.
So all that other time was just 6 months of intensive out of the building experience.
Yeah. And we still use this product today for testing because our biggest business is actually our greeting card business. So we've continued to learn. We learned a lot from that product. It's interesting, easiest way to send a photo in the mail to somebody else as a card, but people wanted more card types. They wanted more text area. And so we invested a lot more into this product. It's now the bigger business. We have a content holiday marketing calendar. It reuses components from all these previous apps, and apps we continue to build today reuse those components. It's our most profitable and largest business so far. So, takeaways. You can do web testing, even if it's a mobile app. You can test the business, you can test the customers. Off-brand testing is a great secret. You do it off-brand or do it in Canada, New Zealand. You can learn a lot that way. Reuse common components to quickly test positioning in markets. One was positioned as prints, one's positioned as greeting cards, one's positioned as postcards. We constantly survey these customers, find the best market opportunity, and we cross-promote and then kill. And that's it.
So let's go back to that last slide. I'm not going to let you get away with that. All right, so let's just start with the one you called out. Surveys. Your tools, anybody else's tools, third-party apps?
Yeah, we use SurveyMonkey.
Okay, SurveyMonkey and how did you get the list of customers?
My roommate had a lot of Facebook pages with a lot of users, so I did a little deal with him where we got the cross-promote to them. That's a great thing about being in Silicon Valley and living with 6 people in a house.
Okay, so hit one, live with 6 people, okay.
But they're all building companies, yeah.
But what other tools that the audience should be thinking about that you found helpful that either you had to create or you used off the shelf?
We were on test flight pretty early for getting our build out to people. And I'm excited about Gentry talking about what they even took that to a new level, building their own tools. But we use test flight. We use Mixpanel to track user data and also Flurry. We've used more Mixpanel recently and now something called Looker.
Okay.
Other tools. Surveying is your best tool. And the best tool is living across the street from a mall with tons of consumers. And every Friday we have a scheduled walk over there with a product. I take a product person, a designer, an engineer, and we just go talk to random people, have them push on paper or iPhone apps.
So you truly got out of the building with a product. And they were testing wireframes or paper or?
Paper, wireframes, or full products.
And what were you testing? Were you testing the product or the customer segment or both?
We went to the mall because they were people that like to buy stuff, and that's our customer base. Usually, we would always pick women. That's 80% of our customer base. And
whoa, did you know that on day one?
No.
Well, that's a big insight.
Anybody's built consumer stuff knows they're the ones that spend money and care the most about sending cards and
But
gifts.
you didn't know that.
No, we didn't.
And where in the process did you discover it?
When I started looking at the orders, and they're all from women.
So, Matt, I just want to point out to all, this getting down the building stuff might sound like blah, 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 and you think, I get it, it's a giant focus group. What Matt just pointed out is the difference between a loser and a winner for a business. It's insight out of the data, right? If you had never looked at the data, you know, though this one was probably smacking you in the face, that's the insight you're looking for. Oh my gosh, I think I'm building it for X, and here it is. Why? Did you change the problem?
Yeah, so if you look at Postergram, it's like black and orange, like totally male focused. Ink cards, our greeting card brand is like reds. It's much softer, it's for women. So absolutely.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.